This video brought to you by the WD-40 Company.
Why do I always have the worst luck? Check out what I found here. So there was tape over the throttle body, and I pulled that off. So water has gotten into that from when it was sitting out before I bought it. So I went to turn it over by hand and it stuck. So I pulled out some spark plugs and that cylinder right there is full of water. So, I asked the guys, the other BleepinJeep guys, what they recommend. And they said to pull all the spark plugs and pour either Marvel mystery oil or transmission fluid, which I have transmission fluid, so that's what I'm going to do. Let it sit for a while. First I need to vacuum out the water. So I guess let's do that. Fun in the sun. Oh, look at this. I just pulled this plug. There's water in cylinder 2 as well. Fun. So it's not very sophisticated. But here's what I've come up with. I've got my shop vac, and I just taped a piece of tube on here. And I'm going to use that to vacuum out all the water. Alright, how much do we put in? That is the question. I'd say 3 squirts. Does that sound good to you? Let's give it a shot. 1, 2. I'll put 4 in this one since it was the most offending. Look how corroded that is in there. I guess I need to add a throttle body to the list of things that I need to buy. Oh, that is not good, folks. That is not good at all. Let's take a look in here. Kind of stinks like a squirrel's nest down in there. Might as well. I don't know that anything will bring that back from the dead, but I have this WD-40 rust remover soak, and I'm just going to soak that in there and see what happens. Because as of right now, it's just completely, the butterfly valve is just rusted shut completely, so look at all that gunk in there too. We'll see what happens. Alright, so the directions say to remove as much dirt and debris and oil off of that thing, which didn't really have any oil. We're going to put it into a container, and you want to submerge it completely. So I'm going to add a little bit more of this in there so that it's completely under. 30 minutes for light rust, overnight 8 hours for medium rust, and 24 hours for heavy rust. So we'll just let that sit, and we'll come back. You better watch out!
Alright. Get a towel. Really over yet?
That defeats the fun.
Oh, come on, man.
Oh, wait. It's really locked up now. Battery's dead. It's turning over though. Heck yeah. Good job.
All we need is a fresh battery. We can do a compression test.
Yeah. Look who we found, guys. This is Rick, the Jeep Doc. He's got his own YouTube channel if you want to check it out.
Jeep Doc?
It's the Jeep Doc, right? Yep. All one word?
Yeah, not Jeep Doc. It's the.
The Jeep Doc. So, he came over to help me figure out some wiring issues with this. And the first thing that we found was that I was missing an integral piece here, which is this. So we did some searching, found a guy local, went and got this box, the fuse and relay box as I like to call it. But then we figured out that that was from a 2004 and it doesn't work in a 2006.
Nope.
So
different control.
on this, then we also realized we got a compression tester, and since the motor had so much water in it sitting for so long, number 2 cylinder and number 4, was it 4 or 5?
I think it was 5.
5
Number 5.
or 6. No, it was 6.
Was it 6? I don't remember anymore.
2 and 6
Dead.
cylinders are dead. They have no compression. Like, what, 60 psi I think was the max?
One was 30 and one was 60.
30 and 60. So this motor is dead.
No bueno.
So now what are we doing?
Pulling the engine.
Gonna have to pull it.
Find another one.
Gonna have to find another engine.
But I think we found one local.
Maybe.
Maybe
We found
the guy will
one.
ever call us back.
So
we'll go ahead and pull this out.
what did I get myself into?
A lot of work. But I'm here to help.
You came all the way from Virginia.
Yeah. Central Virginia.
To help. And we are needing more names on here. You gonna write your name on there before you leave?
Sure.
Alright, check it out. That throttle body has been sitting in that WD-40 Specialist Rust Remover soak for, well, I would say 24 hours, but I kind of forgot about it. It's a little more than 24 hours, so let's pull it out and see. And I've wiped it down a little bit. Time for the ultimate test. I guess I should turn it around so you can see it. Look at that. That thing is like brand new. I didn't think, after seeing that when I took it out, I didn't think that that thing would ever be usable again. Of course, I need to wipe it up a little more. But man, I think with a little wiping, that thing could go right back in there. Of course, some of the sensors are going to have to be replaced. So now I'll take that throttle body back in the house, rinse it off with some water to stop the process, and then I'll put some of this corrosion inhibitor on it. I like this stuff too. And the cool thing is, I'm going to take the film off of this with a little rag here, and then you can reuse this remover soak by just pouring it in here. And it says you can reuse it until it's black, and you can see that it's still very much clear. So a lot of uses in this stuff remaining.
We broke it.
We were just discussing how much cleaner that engine looks without all that wiring harness, and that's only part of it. Look how much nicer that looks. So tell me about this company that we're going to send this to.
So it's Hotwire Auto. We're out of Arizona.
Oh, we got air conditioning now. We got heat.
Not Arizona, Arkansas.
Arkansas?
Arkansas. His name's Chris. I can't remember his last name, but he's done like 4 harnesses for me. And primo, labeled, reloomed. Everything's beautiful. Comes with a nice tight little fuse panel. And
it's all labeled.
It's all labeled. Plug and play.
Hot wire auto.
Hot wire auto.
So the idea is that he's going to take off all the things that I don't need and just leave only the parts that I absolutely have to make this thing run. Because all we need to do is make this thing run pretty much and shift with the transmission. Everything else though is kind of stuff and crap that I don't need to go, especially for an FC. But we still need to get the motor out.
Working on it. We'll get it out.
All right.
Another 20 minutes.
I'm counting on 20 minutes now. I'm going to set the timer.
Check.
All right, check it out, guys. What is that? No, we didn't pull the motor. We just got 2 motors. Why? So we thought we had found another good motor. And then whenever we went to test it before we bought it,
Oh, are you kidding me?
cylinder 1, it's only getting 30 pounds, 30 psi. So we left, and then we decided to go back and pick up the motor and give it a shot. Maybe there's just something simple wrong with this thing. Is it simple? What are your odds? What's the odds here?
Hopefully it's just something hanging one of the valves up in there, a piece of carbon or something.
If not, now we have 2 bad motors.
Hey, if anybody needs a transmission, hit us up.
We do have some extra parts now. We got this one fairly cheap, and it's got a transmission and a transfer case on it for a TJ. So this is an 04, so it's got a little bit different computer situation, transmission computer also.
The harness pins are different, and it's got a separate module for the transmission control.
This is like the worst project I've ever gotten myself into, and it's all because of you guys. You guys suck.
Hey, wait a minute, I'm one of those guys.
Did you vote for the FC?
Yeah, yes, I did.
Darn you. So this is turning into a nightmare project here. And, you know, an 05, 06 TJ motor that's still in running condition and low mileage is pretty hard to find, I would imagine. So what we're going to do now is take this apart and try to figure out what exactly is wrong with it.
Yeah.
And if we can maybe match parts from this one and that one to make one good one. Is that a possibility?
It's possible. Hopefully it's just something simple. We pull the head off. Maybe it's trash in the valve or something. But if there's something wrong with the piston and one of the ring lands is broke off or something in there from where this guy had the accident, we're pulling that piston maybe, and then honing the cylinder, putting the rings on maybe one of the pistons out of that engine, sticking it in this one.
The Jeep dock is in the house.
Yeah.
We're going to try a little trick here.
Trying to get these valves to unseat and get whatever trash that's in them out if they have any. So hopefully we can, hopefully they're not bent.
That one seems harder to hit.
It does. This is the exhaust and that's the intake.
Apparently we made it worse by
by
tapping on it somehow.
We're going to pull the head.
How did we make it worse?
God.
It was getting 40 foot-pounds a minute ago. We tapped on it, and now it's getting nothing.
That tells me that there's a change from just tapping on the valve. So I wonder if something's under the valve.
All right. We've been beating and tapping on this thing, and we keep getting 0 or close to 0 on that first cylinder, and we had an idea. Tell us what your idea is.
So originally this engine had sat for, what, 2 years?
I think the guy said 2 or 3 years. It hasn't been run.
We were doing a dry test. So now we're going to do a wet test on each of the cylinders and see if we can get any change in compression ratio.
So
get anything out of number 1.
the idea is to spray some WD-40 Easy Reach with the flexible straw in there. I'll put it down inside there go all around. And what we're trying to get is the rings to kind of get some lubrication on them.
Get some lubrication on the rings, make it a wet test. So it'll build the compression a little bit better, being wet.
Should we do them on all of them or just the one?
Do all of them, being you got the flexible straw on it. It's easier to get in.
I'm gonna like hit the corners of this thing and then pull it back to get the backside. How much do you want to put in there?
Not a whole lot, but just enough to make the cylinder wet.
Okay, so number 3 was kind of bad too.
Yeah, number 3 was only at
130.
130.
Now what's a typical?
On these engines, between 160 and 150 is normally what you want to see.
So 130 is bad.
130 is low, but it was a dry test.
Now, why are we putting WD-40 in the spark plug holes, you may ask? Well, let me try to simplify this here. So you have, inside the engine, you have a piston that's going down into a machined hole, basically. And since this motor hasn't run in a long time, it hasn't got oil all over it on the inside and splashing around. And so it's very dry. So you have this metal piston in a metal hole with a metal ring around it, and there's just no oil or no lubricant there. So there's got to be gaps, right? There's air getting past. You want this to be a very tight seal. So by spraying the WD-40 in those holes, it's going to hit right on the top of the piston, go around, soak down into that ring, and simulate a running, driving engine that would typically be wet and lubricated from typical use. We're hoping that by doing that, we can simulate what it will be like once it gets up and running by putting a little bit of lube on those piston rings. Now, what happens though if you have compression rates that are drastically different?
Drastically different means the engine's worn in different areas of the cylinder wall, or bad rings, or bad seating valves.
Is that going to blow up?
Well, what it'll do is make the engine run imbalanced, and it'll run rough.
Like shaking?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you have different compression ratios in each cylinder when it comes up. When it comes up for compression and it goes to fire the cylinder, it's got different cylinder pressures. So when you have different cylinder pressure, and you can actually feel that in the engine by just idling. So when it has different cylinder pressures, it's going to fire differently in each cylinder also.
Right.
So it's just going to be an odd fire.
So now we're going to put the compression tester. Should we turn it over a few times first?
Yeah, you want to run it in a little bit, so we'll go ahead and do that real quick.
Okay, so we got hooked up to cylinder 1. Basically, you just take that hose, and it has a disconnect. We bought this at Harbor Freight yesterday. You put that in the spark plug hole, and you said you want to have all the spark plugs out of each cylinder.
Engine's free to rotate.
And you also want air to be able to come in freely from the intake. All right, let's give it a test. Let's see what happens.
Ready? Here we go.
Hey, we got something. I think it worked. I mean, it's not 150, but it's not 0.
Yeah, it's not 0.
Maybe I didn't waste my money after all. Holy cow.
Want to try it again?
Yeah, let's see if it's maybe
a little bit of runtime. I guarantee you that the cylinder pressures will come back up in this engine. It's just been sitting for a long time.
Like actual running?
Yeah, actual runtime in the vehicle, so get it started. Cylinders will build themselves and clear up and any junk that's in there.
All right, let's try it again.
I'm happy. Now we don't have to tear the engine down.
Yeah, we were about to take this head off, and we
were
had
literally 5 minutes from pulling the head.
Let's go again. made it to 120 that time.
Okay.
So there's something like you said, maybe it just needs to be run.
Yep.
Maybe we can swap this whole thing in
Not have to take it
and
apart.
not have to separate the transmission and the engine to put it in here, which would be good. You think we should run the wiring harness from this engine rather than
If
that
nothing
one?
more, but for simplicity. That harness is split into with a transmission control module, and there's 2 wiring harnesses for it, 2 modules, a PCM, and a board for the transmission. This one is all the wiring harness and computer and transmission control is all in one package. So when we do a standalone, you won't have 2 boxes to mount. You won't have 2 harnesses to run.
Right.
And
And so we're going to have the wiring harness cut down, but I also already got the computer from Wrangler Fix here. And look how awesome that thing is. It's tiny compared to the 2 that we would have to run with the other one.
right.
And you said when we get the engine harness built, we can specify we want longer connections so that we can put that in cab.
Yep. Put it in the cab. That way it's out of the weather and protected. And the harness is going to be a lot smaller and easier to run.
This is one Jeremy taught me. This is the trucker donut. So you take that and you roll it up nice. Once you get towards the end there, you go through with your hand and you pull that through. And then you go through again with your hand and you pull the whole bundle through. And you pull that tight and that'll never come loose. And then you just wrap that around.
Nice. That's pretty neat.
That's your pro tip for the day.
For the day.